Welcome everyone to our first 2021 Alta Insights webinar. These are our free presentations offered on issues important to title and settlement professionals. I'm Jeremy Yowie, Alta's Vice President of Communications, and today we've got a fantastic webinar lined up to really dig into what drives and motivates people with the ultimate goal of in keeping remote employees engaged and productive through the lens of really understanding how people are wired. Alta staff actually, went through this process, and so it was interesting to review my report and see what energizes me and kind of what drains me and gives me at times unproductive. Although I always like to think I'm super productive, but we all have those ebbs and flows. Before starting, we need to touch on a few housekeeping items. All participant lines are muted for today's discussion. If at any time you have a question, please submit them through the questions box. We'll hold some time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. And as an added benefit, the webinar is being recorded. The recording will be available on Alta's website at alta.org/webinars. That's alta.org/webinars. You'll also get an email with a link to the recording tomorrow. You can download a copy of today's presentation from the handout section there in the GoToWebinar window pane. We do need to thank Qualia for sponsoring today's Alta Insights presentation. And before introducing today's speaker, we need to play a short commercial from it.
Hi there, I am Debbie Brooks, and I am the owner of Prominent Title, along with my husband, Joe Brooks, and we are located in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we are open for business.
My name is Bethany Payton. I'm the manager and majority owner of Total Title LLC, based in Indianapolis, Indiana, and we are open for business.
Hi, my name is Sultana Huck, and I'm the managing partner of Stonebridge Title Group, the title company that services all of the state of Florida, and we are open for business.
My name is Ray Manuel. I'm the Vice President of Operations and Sales for National Title Solutions, located in Woodridge, Illinois, and we are open for business.
We're not the medical field, but we are still doing something very important, and then that is still holding up this side of the economy. To be considered essential is a privilege.
Joining us today, we have Jay Hawryluk. He is CEO of AccuMax Index. Over his career, Jay has really been fascinated by people and what drives them. He has years of hands-on experience dealing with many complex issues that we all deal with in the business environment. In the 90s, after orchestrating a buyout of his company, Jay has worked with executives of small to Fortune 500 companies, helping them, achieve solutions to the challenges of the business world. And the hallmark of his career has been his ability to deliver new approaches that generate results to his clients and that help drive customer satisfaction. And with that, Jay, I'll turn the presentation over to you so we can understand how you're all wired.
Well, great. Thanks so much, Jeremy, and thank you everyone for taking time to tune into the webinar today. Those of you that have completed the AccuMax in advance, your reports have been sent out. If for any reason you did not get them, my email address will be on the final slide. And let me know. If you want to take the assessment, operators are standing by right now. Please copy this link. This link will be live until the end of the week. And and you'll get your results. So if you do want to take it, either during the presentation today or shortly thereafter, you will get your results. Be patient. It does take a few minutes to get everything set up, but we should be ready and good to go. So everybody has that link. Let's get going. We all get frustrated at times with the new normal of remote working. Now, I'm not saying that people don't like it. Some people really enjoy remote working, and that's been phenomenal that they enjoy it so much. Other individuals are struggling a bit. The key thing is if you know how somebody is wired, that you can better engage them. Now, if you haven't taken the AccuMax, I have done the presentation in a generic manner as well, so that you can get a good idea of what the things are. But again, we invite you. The link will be live until the end of the week. And so please take a few minutes and complete that. That would be really, really good. But before we get going, I want to tell you a story about my coworker. My coworker's name is Echo. And he used to work in an office, but now he's stuck being remote. And it frustrates him a little bit. This is a picture of him having his 28th birthday party back last February at work. Excuse me, that was from 2019. His birthday photo from 2019. He liked the affiliation. He loved going into work. He liked the special activities, the birthday parties. They were just so much fun. But his day is getting a little bit routine. He starts off his day here with a shower and get him going for the day's activities. But like us all, some days he just skips the shower and just goes on and doesn't turn his camera on for his webinars. Then, of course, he goes to start the day with a good breakfast, and his favorite is oatmeal and bananas. And then he has to get to work. He's off to doing work, and he always has so much paperwork to do. And even though he tries to have some fun and he tries to enjoy it, he gets a little frustrated because he doesn't have control over his environment. He can't really talk to generate ideas, and he doesn't really have the time to affiliate with coworkers anymore. And the webinars are really structured and they lack the flexibility that he prefers. This may sound like some of you. And oh, by the way, this picture was taken when he skipped the shower that day, and you can see his feathers are just a mess. But guess what? Team members can be frustrated just like Echo, all right? So how do we better engage them in the new remote working environment? Common issues of remote working is maintaining engagement and focus, dealing with distractions, keeping morale up, finding creative outlets, effectively managing time and projects, and keep proper communication. Now, I'm very pleased to say that many of our clients, especially those in the title industry, have bent over backwards in the new remote working environment to make sure people have a workspace, computers, so that they're better arranged and lined up to work. But however, it's the other things, we can learn to deal with the distractions, but our wiring will help keep our morale up by telling us the things that we need to be successful in the working environment. Understanding why removes people clutter that impacts overall personal satisfaction in the remote working environment. That's key. Plus, understanding each individual's wiring pattern and what it means and why they desire the certain things that they need creates more engagement beyond just the work or the money. As a matter of fact, the major reason people leave positions is because they're not properly managed, they're not motivated, they're not given the things that they need to be successful. The non-intrinsic things, the non-monetary things that make for job satisfaction. So it's really important that we understand and what a person is needing, what an individual really wants and prefers. The purpose is to better engage our team members. I'm going to give a brief introduction to the AccuMax Index. Techniques based upon the wiring pattern. Now, again, I'm going to be doing these in also a very generic format. If you're not sure, you can ask somebody. And for those that have taken the AccuMax Index, you'll find it's very quick. We have your natural wiring, your adjusted, drive intensity, effective engagement, coaching tips, remote working engagement, and how to best interact with me. So let's just take a minute and get set up. For those, what is different about the AccuMax Index? The AccuMax Index measures innate human wiring. Human wiring occurs in the 18 to 24-month period after an individual is born. It's static. Those of you in the audience right now that have children probably went through the terrible twos. The terrible twos are because that's when an individual's wiring pattern is most pure. It occurs in the 18 to 24-month period as specific chemicals come together in the brain and create specific neural pathways that do not change. That's what we call nature. Nurture are external elements that impact behavior. Where I'm born, my upbringing, my education, life's experiences, all the good and the bad things that happen to us over time. Age and maturity. When I was a kid, my dad used to say to me, Jay, the older you get, the smarter I'll become. And man, is there a lot of truth there. Birth order can have an impact on personality, morals and ethics, so many other things. But this gives a deep dive down to an innate nature, the wiring of what an individual needs. When we know these things, we can put them actually down in verbiage, and we know how to give them the things that they need. So again, specific neural pathways form in the brain in the 18 to 24-month period after birth. There are millions of neural pathways in the brain. We're going to focus on 4 that are very important in the work environment. We call them the A, the B, the C, and the D. Now, we're all socially constructed beings, and we desire some elements of people interaction. The wiring assists in understanding what motivates or engages people in a remote working situation. Why some people love, believe it or not, love webinars. They love being on Zoom meetings all day long. Where there's other individuals where the thought of that Zoom meeting continually hour after hour is just plain draining. So we're going to find out why, and I'm going to give you some techniques today that you can take back and use with your team. Again, those of you that have completed the AccuMax will have the remote engagement report, because we won't just focus on an A, the B, the C, or the D. We want to focus on all 4 of them in an individual to properly engage them in the work environment. The 4 drives that we're going to talk about are A, autonomy, B, communication, C, patience, and D, certainty. Autonomy tells us if a person prefers a more team-driven environment or one where they're more in control. Communication, everybody talks, everybody thinks, but it tells us if a person desires more alone time or heads down time, or one that wants more heads up time and people-oriented time. Patience discloses if an individual prefers less affiliation with coworkers or higher levels of affiliation. Now, there's a lot more to each of these drives that I'm going to be covering today because we have a short time period. I wanted to hit the key points important for engagement. And lastly, certainty. How much an individual wants flexibility in their environment or higher degrees of structure. Okay. For those of you that completed the AccuMax Index, you'll see the natural self. That's your innate wiring. That's been used since about 2 years old. The adjusted self is a rear view mirror of the prior 90 days of your life. Are you currently energized? Getting a proper amount of your motivators. I did note that the people who had completed the AccuMax, there was a good chunk of people that were energized. They're getting their motivators. Sometimes we don't know what we're getting, but we enjoy it. This puts it down into a fact-based conversational style that you could talk with other people about. The adjusted self is a rear view mirror of the prior 90 days of your life. It's constantly changing. So it may be very different for those of you who took it 6 months from now than it is today. Due to the time that we have in our session, I'm not really going to be able to cover adjusted self. But there is a report for those of you that do complete it that will cover the adjusted self and discuss what is going on in your current environment. The adjusted self could be work-driven, but it also could be personally driven. So that's something to keep in mind. Those of you that completed the AccuMax, you'll see an RL factor. RL is on the far left of the top graph, natural self. RL is simply response level. It's designated by the green line. It's unique to each one of you. It's simply the number of words that you selected in your response to an environment. It becomes a dividing line between low and high. Now, when we go through again the rest of the descriptors here, what I'm going to be talking about will be also done in generic terms. So even if you haven't taken it, you can probably identify with what we're talking about here. If you have it written down. And sometimes if you're dealing with others, you can have them take the AccuMax or just ask them what they need. So again, if you're not sure, get in an AccuMax, know for certain, or just ask the individual. Have a conversation based on the items that we're going to go through today. And Jeremy is going to be providing this in a PDF, so everything that's discussed you'll have. Okay. So the first drive A is autonomy, all right? Everybody desires elements of autonomy. Lower autonomy individuals are more innately team-oriented. They like options in decision-making because options allow those individuals to find the best solution, the best idea. This is more of a social drive about harmony. Some individuals that preferred the team, that liked going into the office, collaborating with others, find that they don't have as much team environment in a remote working situation. Again, some lower autonomy people just love the remote environment, but some are struggling with it. And if you can give them things that better engage them, allow them to be better engaged in a remote environment, they're happier and more productive. Now, higher in autonomy, those individuals like their way of doing things best. They like more control in their environment. They like their thumbprint and ideas and plans of action. It's a task driven, it's a task drive for my results, my way. So sometimes higher autonomy individuals like the remote environment because I can do my tasks my way. However, if it's an unstructured environment and they don't have control, it can be a little frustrating. With lower autonomy individuals, the lack of the team at times can be a little bit frustrating, can be a little bit draining, can leave them a little bit empty from the things that they want in their environment. Lower team characteristics, a lack of direct collaboration may negatively impact the overall engagement in the role. All right. So again, you can have them take the AccuMax, and I can't stress enough, or just have a conversation. Are you more of a team-oriented individual? Or are you more of an autonomous individual? More time to collaborate or exchange ideas during remote webinars. Because sometimes the higher A or the more autonomous individuals sometimes are very vocal, like to take up the bulk of the meeting. So you want to encourage that participation from the lower autonomy individual. Virtual tools that reinforce a sense of team. Google Docs, screen sharing, having everybody on the camera, assuming that they all took showers and are presentable that day. It really creates more of a collaborative environment. And allotted time for members to provide updates and give feedback. One of the key things that happens is there's so much that we have to cover oftentimes on webinars to keep everybody informed. We don't have that opportunity to provide feedback. What I highly recommend is that you schedule at the beginning of each webinar what the agenda is. Make the agenda a shorter time period than actually you have scheduled for the webinar. And then at the end of it, you can go back for feedback, collaboration, or input from others. Very important. Higher autonomy individuals sometimes feel they have a lack of control over their environment. They feel that their environment's overly structured or demanding. They don't have control over setting their agenda. Sometimes you can't do anything about that with certain webinars. You have to have them on a certain time at a certain day. And just to fill in the team, to keep workflow going. But what you can also do is give those individuals the ability to execute and organize workflow more according to their ideas, to their course of action, to their preference. Oftentimes, higher autonomy individuals miss the headbutting of a live meeting. It's not unusual that higher autonomy individuals, because they like their way of doing things best, like to debate issues. Sometimes what happens in live meetings is a half an hour meeting becomes 45 minutes or an hour. That can also happen in webinars. So you want to let those individuals have that debate time within some degree of a structure so that they don't run away with the webinar. But that actually energizes them. Look at it like this with your wiring pattern. Your wiring pattern is food for the brain, food for your wiring. Just like our body needs food to become energized, our wiring pattern needs motivators to become energized. So sometimes the ability maybe to have just a webinar where you have your team-oriented individuals to share options, and you have your higher autonomy individuals to butt heads a little bit, actually creates energy. When you have a split group, it's important that you let everybody contribute. All people want to contribute. All people want to share their ideas, all right? So it's making sure that we have enough time to keep that collaboration for the team, but also allow for that control for the higher A, for the autonomy. So establish baselines for timetables, projects, or work for the higher autonomy individuals, but give them the autonomy to get it done and communicate when support is needed. I have a mix of higher autonomy and lower autonomy individuals in my organization. I pretty much, with the higher autonomy, these are the things that need to be done. These are the deadlines. You go figure out when you want to go do it. They're more engaged that way. Now, with the lower autonomy individuals in the organization, we actually spend some time so we can get together once a week and exchange ideas and collaborate and look at some options. Knowing you have helps engage them more. Are there any questions as I go through it? I'd like to kind of hit them. If there isn't, I'm going to go right to the next section, and I'm going to rely on Jeremy to help me out here. All right, we'll go to the next one. B is communication. Everybody talks. Everybody thinks. That's how human beings are built. But what it is tell me how much verbalization, how much social activity. Lower Bs, or more internal thinkers, too much communication and face-to-face is a little bit draining, all right? And actually face-to-face interaction, even over a webcam, with a Zoom or a Teams or a GoToMeeting, can be draining. Lower Bs are more direct and matter-of-fact in their communication style. Say what you need to say, get it done, let me move on. Higher Bs, though, need to verbalize to crystallize. Here's the key point. This is about buy-in for ideas or buy-in for initiatives or projects that you have going on in your organization. Lower B, or internal thinkers, need time to think an important issue through. Too many webinars, too much Zoom activity actually impedes that ability to do that. In addition, it actually drains them of energy. Higher Bs, or more verbal thinkers, they need to verbalize ideas to crystallize. I was on actually on a Teams call with a client a couple of weeks ago, and he's very high in the Bs, very much a verbal communicator. And he said, the thing I miss most is just being able to go on a high B rant, just verbalize in front of the team and get their reactions. So I just said, well, why? Well, we don't have time for it. Make time for it. That's kind of the key thing. And again, if you ask who you have, what they prefer, they will tell you. You know, higher Bs, the more verbal communicators, that face-to-face interaction is energizing. Actually, higher Bs oftentimes like to see people on the webinar. They may not want to be on camera themselves, you know, it could be a bad hair day, but they want to see those individuals and the ability to kind of think out loud. Now, again, lower B is more of a task-driven drive. So when you think about it, when you look at task drives, Oftentimes, webinars, remote work, if I don't have time to be heads down or to complete my task, I find that a little frustrating. Social drives want more of the people interaction. In the majority of wiring, you have a balance between both. Although you can have wiring patterns that are all task, you can have wiring patterns that are all social. But most have a balance. And again, that's why just having that conversation based upon the information you glean from this webinar today to sit down and talk to other individuals. With lower Bs or internal thinkers, they want time to review questions prior to providing a response. One of the key aspects is to send the agenda in advance. Here's the agenda. This is what we're going to be talking about, because it allows the internal thinker to organize their thoughts to properly be prepared to engage in discussion topics. Oftentimes, lower B individuals will keep things to themselves. They may not express it. That's why it's really important with your teammates or individuals that you may be motivating or coaching to, proactively work with them to ensure that they're satisfied. Is there anything going on that you really want to talk about? It's not unusual for an internal thinker to come back and say, well, I'm glad you asked me that because I was thinking about it, but I didn't know if I should say anything. All right. So to find out what they're happy with, or maybe what they find situations are more displeasurable, or they find situations that are more challenging. Enjoy multiple and appropriate means of remote communication. Oftentimes with internal thinkers or lower Bs, I want the communication, but I want it in shorter spurts. Maybe a 10 or a 15-minute session than having a half an hour or an hour scheduled webinar. Consider what information can be best be relayed by email, a call, or maybe in an impromptu meeting in a group setting. But even with an impromptu meeting, it's important to let the agenda be known in advance. External thinkers, this is a social drive. And guess what? They're just the opposite of internal thinkers. External thinkers talk and think like internal thinkers talk and think. The key thing, though, with the external thinker is they want individuals that they can verbalize with, to kick around ideas. How the brain works is with the internal thinker, I listen to what goes on, I put it in my brain, I sort it through for everything to the meat, and then I think about it. External thinkers are just the opposite. As it comes in here and as I verbalize it, I develop ideas, I develop ways of attacking problems, plans, activities. They also like to see others for the reaction. One of the things that oftentimes happens when a higher B or external thinker speaks with a lower B or internal thinker, they ask them a question and they get the blank stare. And then the higher B starts repeating themselves, and then the lower B can't think, and it goes round and round. So it's really important that when you're on these lower Bs, respond to the higher Bs. Higher Bs give lower Bs time to think their response first and then respond. But higher Bs want this verbal think time. This is what helps develop ideas, challenges. Oftentimes a high B may start out talking about turning right, and then going left, going straight, going up, going down. At the end of their conversation, they know what they want. This is important. The key thing is to kind of ask the individual at the end, summarize where you want to go with all of this. Because oftentimes I may discuss a lot of things as an external thinker, but I may not have that, I may not make it clear to others what I've decided to do. Higher Bs like reassurance and positive reinforcement that you can do it. Oftentimes higher Bs, when faced with a problem or a challenge or an issue, like to verbalize it through, because as they're verbalizing it through, they have the opportunity to develop thought, which comes up with ideas and plans of action.
Hey, Jay. Jay.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Sorry to interrupt. Quick question on this high-low B conversation, and a question from Rachel. For a lower B communicator, they don't feel comfortable sharing their thoughts during a team call. Any recommendations to to help them be more of a participant, or maybe it's allowing them maybe to provide feedback later, maybe on a phone call, one-on-one, or email or something. Any suggestions on how to get information from the quiet people?
The first thing is to have the agenda for the meeting in advance. That allows the internal thinker to think it through. Because oftentimes what happens in the meeting is if some things are hit on me and I haven't had time to internally think it through, I'm not going to be able to be as prepared to give a good answer. Now, if conditions change in the meeting or something new comes up, then I would recommend a follow-up. Give that internal thinker, hey, can we follow back up for a quick, and again, 5-minute call to discuss your thoughts? Would you like to do it later this afternoon or tomorrow morning? This is a great question, Rachel. This allows the internal thinker to contribute and be part of the team. Because oftentimes on a webinar, they may not say a lot. So people think they're not engaged or don't have anything to contribute. That's not the case. So have the agenda in advance, and if conditions change during the meeting, circle back for a quick call. Let's have a 5-minute conversation, and then you can relay your thoughts. All right? Did that help?
I hope so. If we had Rachel here, we could pop her, video on and we could ask her. So hopefully she's not virtually.
Yeah, you can pop your page. That's fine. Or you can do it in the chat bar. So, and in the reports, there's a lot of insight into this. One thing I was going to mention that I really is a great idea, and it was given to me by one of my clients, and I love to pass great ideas around, is what they've done is, as a manager, they assign a different day of the week where they'll just send an email out. And they'll say, hey, it's Monday. I'm going to be Wednesday afternoon between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. I'm going to be available. I'm going to be on Teams or Zoom. Just log right in. You can pop in and have a conversation. What oftentimes they found, and going back to Rachel's comment, is things will crop up. The internal thinker can think it through. This also gives them the opportunity to relay their thoughts at that point in time. It allows verbal thinkers to get a little verbal time in, internal thinkers to relay thoughts they've been thinking about, and also creates time for affiliation, which is a very important aspect based upon some of the wiring patterns. I want to go into patience. Now, patience, there's a lot on this particular drive. It controls so many things. It's our work style, speed of decision making, focus, and affiliation. Lower Cs or lower patience individuals, by their nature, they're more impatient. It creates a shorter attention span. Oftentimes with work, lower Cs will do a things to do list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and start on 27, and then go over to 6. Sometimes with lower patience individuals, a longer webinar gets a little bit antsy. There can be some commonality. Lower B, I don't like all the verbalization and people interaction. Lower C, sometimes the length of the webinar can get a little bit overwhelming. I always recommend start on time, finish on time, all right? Lower C is a task drive to get things done. So when you have task orientation, oftentimes the individual is thinking about the task that they need to accomplish. Can I call on you real quick to answer this, Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm muting myself. Sure, definitely.
Well, you're a task-driven individual, but you're also very low in the B drive. Sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit here. So when the meeting and the webinar goes on and on and on and on, what are you thinking in the back of your mind? Because you're a task-driven guy when this webinar keeps going on and on and on.
I'm thinking I need to go write articles for Title News. I need to plan the next webinar. And can we please just end this presentation?
Okay, well, I hope you're not talking about today's presentation.
Not at all, Jay, not at all, right? 100% focused right here on helping people stay engaged.
So when task orientation, that's part of it, as all of the drives come together. And thanks, Jeremy, I appreciate that. Higher patients or higher C individuals, I'm more patient. I have longer term focus. I have a sequential preference. Now, a couple things can happen here. Number one, if I'm in my things to do list and accomplishing it, and then that webinar comes up when I'm in the middle of doing something and I have to put it aside, I'm still thinking about what I probably should have been accomplishing. All right, I'm going to talk about a couple of techniques here. Also, another residual effect of the characteristics of higher patients is affiliation. Know me as a person. Oftentimes, low C affiliation goes something like this. Everybody have a good weekend? Great. Let's go to item number 1 on the agenda. Higher C, it's a little bit of that conversation. What did you do? What were you involved with? Tell me a little bit about what you did. It creates an affiliation because oftentimes in the remote work environment, we miss what I call coffee pot time. Coffee pot time is an important time in work environment because a lot of things can happen. Number one, you run into somebody getting that cup of coffee, and it can be an idea to affiliate, talk personally, or exchange ideas, or solve a problem. So it's really important that you engage the individuals appropriately based on their wiring. And again, if you don't have an AccuMax, ask them. Social drives require more people interaction by their nature. Task drives require less by their nature. Again, we're all socially constructed beings. Even if I'm all task, I still want some people interaction. Even if I'm all social, I want some alone time because that's how humans are built. But it's what I need. And these are usually the things that will attract or detract somebody in a remote environment. Am I having the ability to get things done? Or am I having some ability to be social and to affiliate? Very important in the environment. Lower C's, when you have more impatient individuals, schedule those webinars to start and end on time. I'm always a firm believer that you should start on time and hopefully end maybe a couple of minutes early. All right. And also let lower C's work on projects in the order they choose. Again, they're jugglers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, as long as you get the 5 things done, I'm not really concerned on what order you attack it. Now, obviously, if a client situation, a customer situation comes up, that's an important thing that has to be handled. Kind of let them choose. And give them ample work to fill the day. My organization is very filled with a lot of lower C or impatient individuals. So I always make sure that they have enough initiatives, not overworking them, but enough initiatives. Because kind of what happens with lower C or more impatient individuals, if I've got 10 things on my things to do list, man, I'm jamming, I'm productive, I like it. If I got 2, it's hard to get motivated. And you know who you are in the audience right now. Higher C, more patient and affiliative individuals, they like that water cooler or their coffee pot time. The ability to interact. Now there's a link here, and if you cannot, you should be able to access it through the PDF. If you can't, please contact me. We do have some remote team building exercises and activities to promote affiliation and to have some fun. One of the things that we hear frequently is that, boy, with these webinars, things are always so structured all the time. It seems like we've lost the fun, the impromptu, fun time of the work environment. So we actually have several activities. The link should be live through the PDF. But again, if you have any issues, don't hesitate to contact me. Allow high C's to complete work initiatives without interruption. Oftentimes, impromptu calls to a higher C individual distracts them from what they're working on. Now, sometimes it's an emergency, and I understand that. By the way, those of you that are higher C, more patient and affiliative by nature, if you aren't interrupted in the work environment, I want to give you a little tip right now. What you want to do is say to the individual, can you give me a quick second to button down what I'm working on? Notice, I didn't say finish. I said button down. Because then the higher C, the more patient and affiliative individual can give you full focus and also gives you time to provide a little affiliation and allow them not to experience a detraction from work that occurs with an interruption. So, help them assist the work plan and let them know what changes may be incorporated into it. All right. So high C, I'm patient, I'm affiliative, but I also like knowing the order and sequence of workflow. I like completing what I start, and I'm not too crazy about those interruptions. The last one we're going to talk about here is certainty, because we want to leave a little bit of time for some questions. All right. Certainty is how much information I need to make effective decisions and how much structure I want in the work environment. It's a task drive. It's an execution of duties. Now, I mentioned Jeremy earlier. He's a task guy. He is high in the D. He's high in the certainty. He wants to execute his tasks. And even, we did not rehearse it. I asked him, what are you thinking? Hey, I've got this to take care of. I've got this to take care of. I've got this to take care of. It's important that I get this done and this done. So he's very low, he's an internal thinker. But when the webinars ramble on or go over time or off topic, then that takes him away from the task, the execution of duties. Higher D's like detailed information, the why, the rules and regulations. Oftentimes we say, well, it's a remote working environment, go have fun. Well, how do you want me to approach the work? How do you want me to do some things? At least providing the outline, the general structure of how we want you to accomplish work satisfies the motivator for that drive. Again, it's a task drive for execution of duties. Lower D, it's a more social drive. It's more casual. Those are individuals that want the summary sheet of information. By the way, those are the ones that when you send out a big long email, they only read the first couple of lines on it. All right. They like more exceptions to rules and regulations, a more flexible, minimally structured environment. So that's what's important to talk to an individual. What do you want? Do you want more flexibility? Because really what it is about, it's about having productivity without having to manage the time of people. That's been the biggest aha factor here in remote working. Being productive, getting things done, meeting agendas, but not so much oriented around a work schedule or a work time. In my own organization, I assign things. People have to do customer service because we pride ourselves on giving great customer service. I let the team figure out their own schedules, who wants to do what. I have some members of the team, they love working in the evenings. I have other members of the team that love early mornings. With my team, it's like, hey, as long as you get stuff done, if you want to go out in the middle of the day, take care of something in the summertime, cut the grass, you gotta go shopping, get something you want to do, go ahead and do it, as long as you get the work done. So it's really important to talk to individuals. And I hope you will get a copy of this PDF because it's very important to have that conversation. What actually do you need? And just going through it. Again, an AccuMax gives you certainty on the individual. Nice topic here. But also by asking them. More task drives, find oftentimes remote working, webinars to be distracting to getting the task done. While webinars allow more social activity, but we also have to allow time for collaboration, verbalization, and affiliation. So when you have lower D, outline the goals, the do's and the don'ts that are required for success. Attaining goals as opposed to a set of working hours. And allow them to figure out some out-of-the-box solutions or new ways of performing work. I have some low Ds in my organization, and they've come up with some different ways of doing the things they want to do. I'm fine with that. It's really about satisfying the client, making sure the work's done and done well. Higher for more structure, remote working environments often lack structure. So someone new to the remote working environment may sometimes struggle. How do you want me to do things? Provide clear expectations of the anticipated work. Now, you don't have to do this all the time. After a few weeks or somebody that's new to remote working, they get the hang of it. But this is how we want you to do it, okay? Accessibility to subject matter experts and documentation for reference. One of the things about high Ds, they love information. I like structure, I like certainty, but I love information because information provides certainty. And also be willing to give them performance feedback. One of the things high Ds want to hear, what am I doing well? Where do I need improvement? And it always should be given in that order. Positives, the negatives. And again, if they're higher D, but they're lower B, more of an internal thinker, you may want to send an email. Hey, I'd like to go through some performance review stuff. I'd like to talk about these one or two or three different items. And let's schedule it for later on in the week. What works for your schedule? By the way, when it comes to initiatives, I'm a big fan of threes. The human brain actually works best in threes. I mentioned earlier about the adjusted self being a 90-day, 3-month rear view mirror. The mind works best with 3 initiatives at a time. When you have webinars, unless things are very important, keep it to 3 key topics. If you're giving performance feedback, keep it to 3 key topics. People actually embrace it, utilize it, and understand it, and absorb it better. So remote assist suggestions. Number 1, here's the AccuMax Index link again. If you want to take the index, this link will be live through the end of the week. Our remote exercises link, and these are just some fun exercises. Actually, they were developed by us and a few clients with that idea and input that they wanted. And some tips, just some tips here. Schedule open Zoom meetings. I talked about this a little earlier, where people can pop in and chat. 2 to 3 hour time window, different days of the week. So for example, I will to my team say, hey, I'm available Friday. I'll be working on some stuff, but hey, give me a holler. Let's just talk about some things. I make sure to communicate with the team, everyone on the team, at least 2 times a week. Create meeting themes. Now, this has been fun. We have seen some clients do some really fun stuff. I'm going to give you a couple ideas, but I also would love for you to talk to your team about this. Some have had a business theme, or a pet theme, or a weird t-shirt theme, or a mask theme where everybody wore their face mask, different types of face masks. To create themes, again, one of the big issues that we hear is oftentimes remote work. The webinars are structured. I enjoy the work, but some of the fun, the impromptu, is missing. And this is a way you can kind of fill that gap. And mix it up and make the team meetings more fun and interesting. Engage your team for ideas and what they would like to do. That's really important. And you can have a contest on this. We've had clients that get dressed up. They did that for Halloween. We're going to be doing remote work. We'll have Valentine's Day come up here in a little bit, St. Patrick's Day, do different themes, or you can just have something for the fun of it. We have the Super Bowl coming up. You can have something for the fun of it. But that's one of the big things, that human interaction, that coffee pot, the water cooler time that I talked about, is oftentimes very much missing in the remote work environment. Many of you were probably wondering what Echo's wiring was and why he was a little frustrated. Well, he likes autonomy. He likes his way of doing things best. So give him the opportunity to have some control over his work agenda. He's very much a verbal thinker. He's actually butted in on a few of the webinar calls that Jeremy and I have had because he's got things to say. By the way, he loves being on the camera. He's very affiliative, Don't forget his birthday. He loves that personal affiliative time, but he does like a lot of flexibility in his work hour and his work times. So as a basic recap, we've looked at wiring, how you can use wiring to better interact and engage people. There's the task sides of wiring, which are about getting the job done. The social side, which is about the people interaction. So the PDF will be available from all of this. I hope you enjoyed and found value from our webinar, and we do have a few moments left for questions.
Yeah, we do. Jay, very interesting information on how we're all wired and impact on productivity. I think most people on the call, as you know, when March hit and started working remotely, like many managers found that some workers who maybe weren't as productive in the office all of a sudden became knocking it out of the park. And then on the reverse, some that were maybe, you know, super all-stars in the office started struggling at home. And it's, you know, incumbent on the manager to, you know, notice that and make accommodations, you know, for both to keep both sides engaged. And as Jay mentioned, if you have any questions, submit them in the questions box. We have a few minutes. We'll tackle some of them here.
That's a great point, Jeremy, because oftentimes very task-oriented individuals, although they enjoy some of the people interaction in an office environment, they do find it distracting from getting the task done. But those who enjoyed the social side of the office environment did struggle a bit in the remote environment. And it's key. Remote working is here to stay. A lot of companies are doing great things with it because it allows companies to expand their workforces, go outside geographical areas, cater to different individuals. But it's also important that we got to remember that we are humans, and as humans, we need things to be engaged, not only to be productive, but to be happy and satisfied in our role.
Carmen had a question when we were talking about the bees. And basically her question is, okay, if you have a majority that are high B, you know, say, you know, 6 or 7, and then you have a handful that are low B, 2 or 3 of them, you know, how do you suggest she plans for a meeting, you know, that benefits the high Bs?
Okay, what you want to do is send an email in advance. This is the agenda for the meeting. In the email, explain, hey, we're going to be having a verbal discussion. We're going to be kicking around some ideas. We're going to encourage that. We're going to do it for 10 or 15 minutes. That allows the high Bs to verbalize or whatever time makes sense. Then, as was asked by the question earlier, then with the low Bs, what you want to do is say, hey, some things came up in this session today. Who wants a little time to think it through? And let's circle back in a day and then have a quick meeting to really discuss our thoughts. So you want to include everybody, but the email in advance lets the low B know there's going to be some high B verbalization time. Also lets high Bs know how much time they have to verbalize, but then gives the outlet for the low Bs to come back and contribute at a later point in time. Great question. Thank you. That's a great question.
And if you're on video, you can download a PDF of the presentation from the handout section. You'll get a link to the PDF in the email tomorrow that will have the link to the recording. And a couple of comments. You know, what are people doing, you know, to keep fun in the workplace? Bingos come up. Like another person did the ugly Christmas sweater contest before the holidays. ALTA also did that. People dressed up. I had actually used my Halloween costume as well. So it was like a blow up chicken costume.
Oh,
that was fun. So I think people out there are, you know, trying to find ways to keep people engaged and not just the daily slog. Jay, could you touch on a little bit about when we were talking about patience? And the Matt's question is, can patience vary on the person's stress level? So, you know, the amount of patience you're going to probably have is going to be, you know, dependent on a lot of external factors, right?
You know, you're absolutely right. And what happens is under stress or pressure, we normally revert back to our innate wiring. So impatient people under stress and pressure become even more impatient. Patient people under stress or pressure actually push back against interruptions or the pressure. So yes, it can be situational. And so, for example, like with patience, I may be a high patience individual, but if I have a lot of tasks in my wiring pattern as well to execute the task to be heads down, my patience wanes if the webinar continues to go on. So yes, it can be very situational. And one of the things I recommend is communicate with the team. hey, let's get some ideas for some fun stuff. Give us some feedback on the length of webinars. We've had clients do that who thought the hour was the perfect time. They got feedback saying, we would really prefer webinars be 40 minutes, no longer than 40 minutes. So they've adjusted to those. So one of the key things is just engage your team for ideas. You know, the items I hope in the remote engagement, the little fun exercises we have were from clients, but ask your team what they'd like to do. Ask them on time of webinars. Ask them for some things that they'd like to do. But you're very, very right in this question. Patience can be a function of what's going on and it can be driven by situations. But again, if I'm an impatient individual and I've got tasks to do and I find this to be a waste of time, I'm going to be more impatient. Higher patience individuals will push back against interruptions or new initiatives if they feel there's too much pressure. Good question. Thank you.
All right, great, Jay. Thanks for that explanation. Again, just a reminder, if you missed parts of today's webinar, or if you think others in the office would benefit from listening, a recording of the presentation will be emailed to you. And you can also always go to Alta's website, alta.org/webinars to access our archive of presentations. Jay, there aren't any other questions in the inbox. That Rachel will follow up with you. She said she didn't get the AccuMax results emailed, so get you connected with Jay there and make sure you get the results.
Okay.
Before wrapping up, I just need to thank Qualia once again for sponsoring today's webinar. And with that, that will bring us to the conclusion of today's presentation. Take care,
Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention today. I thank you, and Echo thanks you.
All right.
Thanks
Thank you.
for everything, Jeremy. It's been great working with you on this.